Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. If you even attempt to participate in my shows, you know I open it up the same way every single time because I do think it's so super cool that no matter where we are or what time of day it is for you, we can all come together at the same time and have amazing conversations. This morning, we have Coffee with Denise, Fridays at 10 a.m. This serves the humanity aspect of my sales, AI, and humanity, where we just talk about some amazing, or talk with, not about, but talk with some amazing humans. And this week we have Romita on the show. I'm super excited. As always, I'll let her do her own introduction because I would totally do her a disservice. But I want to, again, welcome everyone. Let us know where you are chiming in from. I'm Denise Martha Bachman. I'm here in Houston, Texas. So it is 10 a.m. on a Friday morning. Romita, where are you joining us from?
I won't say the city because I will mess it up. I'm about 90 kilometers north of Barcelona in a little small beach village. It's called Palafrugell, Calella. I'm saying it wrong, but it's north of Barcelona.
That's awesome. We're going to unpack that a little bit because that's not where she is from. And she is living an interesting life, but that is why we have her here. You know, each week we don't really have a topic. We just share things about these amazing humans. And so we're going to dive right in a few moments. But I do want to share how I met Romita, and it's actually only been since around the probably February timeframe. Yeah. We're in a community together, and we have had an opportunity to engage with one another, not just in the community, but also in a Zoom and in our content together. And I just think she is an amazing individual. How many times do I say amazing today? You might want to take a pen and ticker that down. It's Friday though, so I can do whatever I want, right? It's Friday. And by the way, I have power, which is so super exciting because this time last week I did not for several days on end. So I'm super excited that we're here together enjoying great conversation. Romita, I would not do you any justice by doing an introduction of you. So I'm going to allow you, or have you, just take it over and share a little bit about yourself as we kick off our conversation.
Sure. Name is Romita. I also go by Glitter Explorer. Glitter is my favorite color, and it kind of just stuck with me during my time at Disney. I am a business shaman. I also am a nomad and a minimalist, and I am a wanderer. So I travel all over the world. What I do from a business perspective as a business shaman, it's where the soul meets business. I help people blend the spiritual world, the spiritual element of ourselves with the business aspect of our lives as well, and really intertwine and fill in the gap between those two. And a lot of that came from my time in corporate and then my time as a nomad. I worked with a lot of shamans and yogis and healers. And then I worked on the corporate aspect with lots of CEOs and big named business executives. So I really take both of these worlds that we don't talk about in the same sentence. We don't really talk about spirituality and business or corporate in the same area. I really just blend all of those things together. And I put glitter on it, and it brings sparkle to people's lives instead of it being so dull and mundane separately. If you blend them all together and sprinkle glitter, and you just literally see things light up in a whole new way.
I love that. And I use that. I always say I love everything, but I do actually love that because when you and I spoke, one of the things that resonates with me is that over the last year and a half, 2 years or so, I've been doing, I started down this journey of healing. And as part of that, I have learned to kind of shift the energy I was in. And I didn't actually truly understand even what energy I was in to begin with, but I've been able to now understand the benefit and the value of our energies and how to shift them. Can you hear all that noise?
A little bit, but it's not too bad.
Hold on. Okay, sorry. This is the joy of having your kids home. School actually ended yesterday. So I apologize for that breakthrough, but that is real life, right? So now they were trying to empty the dishwasher, which I truly appreciate, but not while I'm doing a live. That being said, I've shifted the energies now, but it truly has made a difference, not just in my personal life, but as well in my professional life.
Mm-hmm.
Which I find super interesting and didn't really realize. And I tell everyone now, this is not my area of expertise. This is yours. But I even share with others that you got to take care of your stuff so that you can get to a place of higher energy so that you can see the success you truly want.
Absolutely. And I think that's the biggest thing that I see with people that are leaving corporate and they're going into their own entrepreneurial space, or people that are going into one job, going into the next job. You have to be able to heal the trauma and that energy from the past in order to go into the new. If not, what happens is you go into, whether it's building a business or to a new job, and you're building a new lifestyle or a new chapter based on the foundations of your past traumas. And like, that's where the business again and meets the spirituality, because you have to heal one before you go to the next chapter. I remember when I left corporate, I was in such an energy space that of burnout, depression, exhaustion, and just like, I just was like, okay, there's got to be more to life than the house and the car and the paycheck. Like there's got to be more than the materialistic thing. But I was in such an energetic phase, just like you said it so beautifully. I didn't really know what that was. I didn't know what kind of energy space that was. But it took me traveling and being able to go in, and I decided to go on a 1-year sabbatical, and I was like, okay, then I'm going to apply for Google or someone else and go back into the corporate world because I was so good at it. But when I went on this exploration of my own soul and like figuring out who I was, I realized the energy space that I was in was not where I wanted to be or where I needed to be. But even when I started my business, I was still building. I was like, I want to do all the things that I couldn't do in corporation. And that was my guideline for my business. But at the end of the day, that still isn't, basically I was saying, I don't want to work 9 to 5, or I don't want to work 20-hour days. I don't want to do this because that's what I did there and I didn't like it. Or I'm not going to do this because I did this and I didn't like it. But I created unhealthy habits based on spite of my old life. And I realized as I was going through that process, I didn't heal fully. I healed, I got better, but I wasn't fully there. So it's a process to switch your energy, and it's a process to transmute it and transform it into the authenticity of who you truly are. That's underlying. I always say we're born with a heart of gold. And if you think about gold doesn't tarnish. It gets dirty, if you don't clean it, but it doesn't ever tarnish. So our heart is always going to be there, and our heart is going to continue being of gold, but we have to nourish it. We have to maintain it. We have to give it its shine back. And it's always going to just be there, but it's waiting for us to give the shine back to it. And that's what I think of the healing process is. And then you apply that to your business, you apply that to aspects of your life. Oh my gosh, everything just shines. Everything just illuminates, and everything illuminates in a way that you can't even describe it with words. It's just a feeling that and a deeper awareness, and then it just bleeds into other areas. And eventually it bleeds into your customers, it bleeds into your community, and then to your family, and then everyone reaps your benefits of you doing that work. And then eventually the goal is for you to inspire other people to do the work just by leading by example.
I agree with you. And in fact, people will tell me often, and more so, and I think more so even now, but they didn't before I started all of this, but they will comment on my energy and how I shine. But it took a lot of work to get there, right? I would have these moments, and my moments, I talked about this not that long ago. I can't remember where, but my moments could have even been years, which they were, where I would have these phenomenal years. I'd make great money. Seemed super happy, right? Life was grand. Everything was going the way I wanted. And then something would happen and I would spiral down. Now, spiral down wasn't necessarily always down really bad, right? But I would have these moments, which could have then been years as well, where it was a bit harder, right? And then I had actually 2 or 3 times in my life where I really truly spiraled down into depression. But what I realized was it was all this past trauma that I had never really managed to. And now that I've managed to it, I still have what I would call micro moments, right? That I still got to navigate through. And by the way, when you usually clean up some of your trauma, you got other stuff that kind of bubbles up that you got to clean up, right? So it's probably a never ending process. It just gets easier and easier each time. And you start to then truly understand, or you try authentic self, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's almost like cleaning your house and doing a deep cleanse in your house, right? But your house will never stay that clean because, wind, you're going in and out. But once you do that deep clean, it's so much easier to maintain it and to keep it clean by, doing cleanses and, touching up and doing light cleanses every week versus having to do a deep clean every single time. Like it's the same thing. We have our own little home that's inside. And after you do the heavy lifting, the maintenance part is just nourishing. And that's way easier, especially when life hits you.
Yes.
And life will hit you. It always does.
Always. And going back to that for a second, not everyone's trauma has to be the same. So trauma's relative, meaning that my trauma may not seem as bad as someone else's, or someone else's trauma may not seem as bad as mine, right? But it's as bad as we know it for ourselves to be. So that's one. And the other is sometimes you may not even remember the trauma that you went through until you actually start to go down that path of uncovering. Because when we talk about ourselves, there is our organic self, and that is who we are at the root without having to think about anything. And then there's our aware self. So now we know that what we do is right or wrong, or good or bad, or low energy, high energy. So now you know that there are things about you that you want to shift or change. And then you have your developed self. So now you've learned that in your organic self, there's a lot of stuff that happened, and you can shift that. At least this is my perception. Now you may not see us in the same light, meaning, that there are 3 stages within ourselves. That's just my gig. But I will say that when you may not even know what transpired in your organic self. You are who you are because of the experiences that you had. So someone who assumes too quickly, someone who isn't very trusting, very easily, they're those ways because of something that they experienced. And when they understand that first, that hey, there must be a reason why, then they can go back and figure out what that reason why might have been, so that they can get to a developed self. Anyway, that's a lot of woo-woo, but
no, I love it. I actually have been using the term awakened a lot more right now, because I feel like a lot of people, I think most of us have spent, I know I did, in a lot of my life where I spent looking at life like it's almost like you're looking at it through a keyhole, and it's so small. And I'm always like, when you're looking at life through a keyhole, I'm always looking for ways to expand it, but you don't always, like, there's no manual or textbook or, directions to figure out how to expand your purview on what life it should be. And then there's so much information out there. But then, like, you get to a point where you find tools and resources that allow you to expand that keyhole. And now you've got a bigger perspective. Now you get to see the past, future, and present in a more 360 view. And then you take this information and your awareness becomes deeper, and you become more in tune with not just the things around you, but you're looking inward versus looking outward. And I think our lifestyle makes us look outward. Someone said to me, or maybe it was a meme that I saw, that, like, they said, you walk around all day thinking about other people and other people's feelings. Doesn't that get exhausting? And I was like, that's a great way, because I can't imagine how many years, decades that I spent walking around thinking about other people's feelings and other people's problems and other people's and never really taking time to even look inward or figure out who I am. And that just makes our keyhole of who we are, like learning about ourselves. It makes that view so small and so narrow that you get to the point you're like, you don't even want to look there anymore, because I mean, you can't see anything anyways. And you're just so focused on the outside, because that is so broad and such we get that for free. No work needed, right? We get the 360 view of everyone else and everything else. But then the people that have awakened to themselves and become in tune to themselves, they realize that the world is actually much bigger when we look at ourselves and we go inward, and you don't worry about the outside anymore.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know that I could have even explained that any better myself, because that's your area of expertise. But if I think about just my own, I think when I have focused more on myself, that everyone else's problems then become more like a TV. Like, I don't have to be a part of it. I can just view it, and it doesn't, it's almost like a TV show. Like, I can sit in front of a TV show and just chill and watch it for what it is, like Law and Order. I watch that nonstop. When I watch it, it doesn't impact me negatively. I don't get freaked out. I don't, I just watch it. I love that show and I've watched every show and every season and every version of Law and Order, right? And I watch it all the time. But, it doesn't affect me any. But there was a time when everyone's life, when I watch, it's very much like life. When I used to watch it, I would become a part of it. I'd absorb myself into it and become, how do I solve that problem for them? Or I need to feel the way they feel because, or whatever it may be. But now I can sit back, now that I've worked on myself, I can sit back and watch everyone else's life, and I don't have to be a part of it anymore. I can choose to check in on them or see if I can offer some help, but I don't become a part of that problem anymore. Even if I was never really a part of it from their perspective, I would put myself in that place for some reason. But now I can just watch it like I do my Law and Order shows.
Isn't it so freeing to be able to do that?
Yeah, it's awesome, actually.
And I can't imagine my life any different now that I've released those chains. But I wondered how people still, like, there's a lot of folks that are still, they walk around thinking that, they hold on to that baggage. And I send them a lot of love and light, because that's something that we have the choice. You said a beautiful word. We can choose to keep that, or we can choose to keep it, to just let it roll off of us and not affect us, not take it in. Because then most of the time there's nothing we can do actually to solve other people's problems. There's not much that we can do, really. It's unnecessary worry.
Agreed. And it causes, when you worry and you put yourself in those positions, it causes so much internally, from health issues to, just a broad spectrum of symptoms that occur when you do that. So why not protect yourself? And actually, then when you're protecting yourself, you're protecting your family and all those that engage with you. Or we could talk about this forever. Okay, but there's so many other things I want to unpack. Like, I want to know, when you decided to take this year sabbatical, where were some of the places that you actually chose to go? And why did you choose, as part of that sabbatical, to actually start to wander?
So it was initially, when I went through that process of figuring it out and like leaving, I didn't want to be in the city that I was in. So I was like, okay, I'm going to sell my house and my car. I'm going to sell all my things, because I don't want to have to deal with this if I'm traveling the world. And I had picked out a 1-year plan of doing, 12 months in 12 different countries. And I decided to go with this group called Remote Year. And so I went on this journey, and it was supposed to be other nomads. I didn't know this lifestyle. I didn't even know remote work even existed at that point, because I'd always worked and a brick and mortar. So Marriott, Disney, like I was always in a physical location. So when I left, I said, I'm going to sell off everything, because what's going to happen is when I come back to this world to go back to corporate, I'll probably have to relocate somewhere, and I'll just buy a new house, wherever the job is. That's what, in my mind. So I thought that, and I bought this one-way ticket. And the first location I went to was, I went to Lisbon, Portugal, I think. Yep. I went with my cousin. This was before the trip was supposed to start. And then I started doing this journey, and we went to Croatia. We went to Spain. We went to these different countries. I kind of followed the itinerary, but within the first couple of months, I learned how to travel on my own. I learned how to navigate countries that I didn't speak the language in. And I learned a lot about just traveling and being a minimalist, because the first time when I packed, let's just say I had way more than 2 suitcases, and I was paying some fees at the airport, because I was like, I'm going to need all of this stuff. And then, by the first country, you're like, oh, so these people actually do live in civilization. You can buy Q-tips from you don't need to carry that, or they have shampoo. Okay, that's great. You just you don't realize what you need to buy or what you can't buy, or, what that is. So I learned a lot about myself. And then I learned a lot about myself and how I travel, because it was almost like you're going on this event. Well, you are. I was going on this adventure, and I didn't really pick the itinerary. This kind of it just all laid out that way. And then each place I went to, I would meet people at cafes. I would meet strangers. I'm like, oh, you sound American. And then they would tell me, hey, I just had this great reading of astrology. I was like, well, what's that? And they would tell me, and then I was like, go get a birth chart reading, or I'd go meet this energy worker. Or I was like, I just met this shaman, and they just told me this, and we had a great experience. So I would go, and I didn't know any of this stuff. I didn't really understand this world. And I was also not a religious person. So when all of this stuff, I was like, well, is this tied to, I don't want to go if it's going to be someone trying to take, I'm thinking Jehovah's Witness, they're knocking at your door and wanting you to convert. I was like, I want to go and experience it. And so I would go, and I would just experience these different things. And I learned so much about myself through the travel, through the packing, the minimalist, and what I actually need and what I didn't need, and what I could survive without. That actually really shocked me, of what I could survive without too. It's what I didn't even need. So now the chains are being released of all the things I need, I don't need, and what I'm going through this process. And now I'm learning about myself from a very different perspective. And I'm learning about myself through the moon and through the sun and through astrological terms. And then I'm understanding energy work, and I'm understanding how scents and sounds and all these different things play into my own nourishment. And I was like, I didn't even know that if you listen to this sound and then you mix it with this scent and then you do this, all of these things combine together. And I'm learning about my body from an anatomy perspective, and through fasting, and the way they eat certain foods during certain times, and how they eat it. Like in Asian culture, they eat fruit prior to the meal, because the fruit actually helps, and then they eat their meal. So the fruit is eaten first, and then you eat your meal, because the fruit actually helps with the digestion process. And that's why they do that. So also if you were to eat beef, you want to eat pineapple as your fruit prior to, because a pineapple actually helps to digest the meat. And it helps break it down into your gut faster. So also garlic and onion, a lot of rituals that they do in Latin America and in Asia, heavily in India too, they tell you not to eat garlic and onion. And I didn't understand that until I went to Latin America and Asia. I was like, okay, all of these, you guys are very parallel, very different, but very parallel in the way you do things. And then I realized garlic and onion actually affect your meditation. So when you're going on a spiritual, doing ayahuasca or doing a fasting that's spiritually inclined fasting, you don't want to take garlic or onion, because that also hinders you moving up into your pineal gland for your meditation. But it's interesting how 2 completely different cultures and religions both have that same rule. And I would just compare and contrast and get all these notes. And let me tell you, that year went by really fast, and I didn't want to come back because I was having so much fun learning all of these things, but learning more about myself. And I just kept going and I kept going, and I haven't returned back. I'm still on this journey of wandering and still learning and still elevating and still understanding and learning about my body and what we can do and how we can heal ourselves, how we can heal the people around us, how we can elevate our consciousness to a level and then apply that to our everyday life in our work, our business, our family, and our ecosystem. And it's just about making it better, but also spreading love through the humanity around us, like the people around us, and like being able to amplify that love and light that we have, but we have to amplify it within ourselves. And I'm learning how to do that even stronger and stronger and stronger. And it's just like trauma work, it's never ending. So you can continuously spiritually elevate within yourself, and it's a never ending journey, and it's beautiful. And it's just one of these things that the higher you go, there's still another level, and there's still another level. And each time you go up the next level, like I don't even know how to explain it. It's just magic every single time. And I'm addicted to it.
I say, well, there's a lot there that I want to, but I will say one thing, that it seems like every time that I'm moving up in levels that I get stuck, or right before the next shift, something big happens, right? Before I move up the next, it could be another blockage that I have, or just some larger challenges that I haven't experienced. It could be something else, but I always know when I'm about to go to the next level, because something comes in to block, like almost like it wants to block it so you don't go there, right?
I call that the final exam. That's when I know that's the final exam, because that's the test to get you to the next level.
Oh, interesting. I like that.
So like you think about end of a semester, an extra, you finish a class, you can't pass the class until you do the exam. And what in life, it means, going through a catalyst, a storm of some kind, whatever that may be for you, in order to, take what you've learned and now apply it to that storm, whatever that storm is for you, and then use that to get you to the next plane.
I like that. Okay, makes sense. Okay, so then let's talk though about the average person, because like I have a family and 2 kids who go to school, right? They're in their school years. I can't just pick up and wander, as awesome as that sounds, than the life that you're experiencing. So I can't experience some of the same things you are in the learnings that you are, because I do have I do have to take them to their activities, and I have to bring in some money. So I got to work, and, there are some things that affect me. So how do you coach, others right now or what would you say? Because maybe, someone out there is watching right now, whether they're on Team Live or Team Replay, and they're watching and they're thinking, okay, that's great and wonderful that Romita can do that. She's found herself by going through this opportunity of wandering as a nomad, right? And you're doing that again. So I'd love to go down that path and uncover, when you came back and then going back out. And I say back out because I just know that you were in the Carolinas, when you and I first spoke, and now you're back out in Europe. But how do you, for those watching, what if we can't go down this wandering opportunity or experience as you have? How do we maybe achieve or accomplish some of the things that you have in your learnings without being as immersed as you are?
I think that's the reason why I've been put on this. And I understand that now that this is my purpose, is that I've been on this path to learn and collect all this information. And now that's what I do as a coach, is sharing it and bringing this knowledge and figuring out how we apply it to our day-to-day lives. Because you're right, not everyone can go and travel. And actually, traveling lifestyle isn't recommended for everyone. It takes a soul to do the lifestyle that I do. It works for me, but 80% of the world, it does not work for them. So it's figuring out how to create more time and space for you in your ecosystem for you to have that time and space where you can expand, where you can expand that keyhole and you can look beyond that. And maybe it's also for a lot of my clients, it's about restructuring how we look at financial freedom and how we look at the word freedom and how we look at money individually as well, and how that flows within the ecosystem. Because I think we've all been taught what money needs to look like, what money needs to feel like. We've also been taught what freedom looks like and what, responsibilities are supposed to be, what we're supposed to have as responsibilities, or what they really are as obligations, and really dissect and really understand what those definitions and what those words mean in your ecosystem. It's really unpacking all the different elements within your ecosystem and finding those gaps of where we can fill it out, because at the end of the day, it's not just about you, it's also for your kids, it's for your husband or your wife or your partner, or maybe you don't have kids and maybe it's just, for your community. It's figuring out what your purpose is in that ecosystem and then allowing you the space to nourish what that purpose is, to nourish what that is that you need to do so you can be that pillar and be a leading example in that space. And there's so many, because everyone's life is so different and everyone's challenges are different. So it's really figuring out what those challenges are for that person and figuring out what that gap is and filling it in with the spiritual meets the business piece too. Because at the end of the day, we all need to make money and we all need to survive. And in order to survive, we need to make money. But also if we think about it differently, we add different practices in it, we can increase our income in a way we need it to more nourish what we need without the stress of it, without the burnout, without the chains of burdens that we tend to create for ourselves. But a lot of it is reshifting what we have, but you got to know what you have, truly know, before you can do any shifts. And I think that's the part people really miss, is they forget to really do an inventory and do a truly inventory of not just the physical, but the spiritual too.
I would agree with that. I don't know that I've actually done an inventory, trying to uncover what I have, what I don't have, but I don't know that I know the depths of the work that I've done. And I know there's still more work to be done. As you said, I think never ending, right? And just when I think I got through one thing, something else comes up, but at least it makes it easier each time, I call them, it makes it easier for me to manage or navigate through them so I can get on the other side a bit sooner, quicker, whatever you want to call it. We were actually talking about, I think this is super interesting when we talk about the spiritual and energy and business. One of the things that we were discussing before the show went live was that I talked about the fact that right now, if you look at the amount of engagement I've had over this week, it's been really low. And I had thought it could potentially have been because we had this horrible weather here in Houston and I was offline for 5 days, essentially. And so I thought, well, that's the LinkedIn algorithm. But you had said it had a little bit more to do with something else, which is also a play, probably had impact on the weather that we had in Houston. I'd like to have that conversation here and have you share a little bit about what you thought, not what you thought, what you know it is to be.
So for me, I studied a lot of astrology, and I also work with an astrologer. So to know astrology, it takes years and years and years. So I have a go-to person that I work with a lot in astrology. And every 11 years, the sun shifts its pole. So meaning the North Pole and the South Pole, it switches every 11 years. This has been happening every 11 years. So in astrology, we can know what's happening usually a year out or a couple years out. Like they know, okay, well, they tell you in 4 years, you're going to find the love of your life, and you do these birth chart readings. So I look at it to see okay, what's happening in the world. So this year that's happening. So right now I knew that was happening. So I was like, okay, let me look into that. And I researched, and NASA has been talking about it actually since about 2022, 2021. So the solar flares, they've caught sunspots in the sun. So we've got the poles shifting. Not to mention, we have the sunspots, which was, according to NASA, it was going to come into full bloom January of this year till November of this year. So we're going to have solar flares that's coming through. And we already had X class, which is the highest amount or a force of solar flares that can come through. And that happened about 2 weeks ago, or maybe a week and a half ago. So when solar flares happens, basically a storm, when the sunspot, it pops, it projects, and I'm saying this not scientifically correct, I'm sure. It projects a flare, and it comes to the earth. So that affects your electrical. It's why, for example, Apple iPhones stopped iMessages and didn't work for a couple of days or a day. Like, you couldn't send iMessagings because of the Wi-Fi. That's why we've also been getting a lot of these updates that are coming through. A lot of social media, you're going to have just glitches. You're going to have things, technology is just not going to work. You're going to have things where the internet goes out for maybe an hour or 2 hours or 30 minutes, and it's just going to glitch. And things are just not going to work 100%. So some of the things that I tell my clients, just unplug. If you're not using any appliances in your house, unplug them. Make sure that, just be a little proactive of that. If LinkedIn yesterday was super glitchy, when I saw the comments, I'm like, I'm not even going to post today. I'm taking the day off because I knew it was the solar flares. It's just, that's what's happening. It's just affecting. Another thing that happens is weather. So if you look on the news right now, you're seeing probably globally weather is a bit off. We had the auroras that happen where, northern lights never come this far south.
Never.
Usually you got to fly to Iceland, and here we're sitting in North Carolina. We're like, oh, we're looking at the northern lights. And that, no, that's all from the solar flares. All of that comes from the solar flares. So if you want to learn more about it, you can go onto NASA's website. They're actually been reporting on it, and they've been keeping the public. Unfortunately, the news isn't really reporting on these things, but that's the cause for it. So these are things that I talk to my clients about back in January. When I get this information, I'm like, hey, so these are going to happen. So make sure we got inside information from the earth or from the galaxy. And let's apply this to our business, so we're just proactive versus being reactive.
Yeah. And I mean, we had this crazy storm about almost a week and a half ago, right? So, well, it was about a week ago now, a week and a day, where it was just this 15-minute. Now, it went the length of several miles. So, I mean, probably even more than 20 miles, but it was a pretty lengthy, but it was, every time it came through, for each little section it went through, it was only about a 15-minute span where it came in with no warning. And we thought it was just a normal storm. It was hurricane type winds, dropping tornadoes everywhere. And then it was gone, just like as fast as it came in. I mean, it was absolutely insane. And I would have to suspect that, and it's an uncommon, like it does not happen. It's like this weird experience. Now they gave it a name. It's in my post. So I did post it, I think over the weekend or on Monday. So there is a name for it, but it's just not something that's super common. I would have to suspect it has something to do with that.
I would suspect it does too, based on what I've read and my understandings of solar flares. Weather, electrical grids, technology are the three biggest things that it affects. So I expect, because they said, according to NASA's predictions, is January through November. If based on that information, if that's how long the solar flares are coming through, and there's going to be a max during that time frame, I would expect more weather like that, or just chaotic random weather like that we've been having that's unexplainable over the next few months, especially over the summer.
Interesting. Yeah. And we didn't have power there's still some people. I think one of my friends just got power last night, and we had it. I mean, so they went 8 nights, 7 days with no power. I mean, it's been pretty terrible. So, and it's 90-degree weather plus, so it's hot.
Yes. Yeah. It's actually why I picked Spain to be here for the summers, because I'm in 66-degree weather and it's very nice. And so if I were to go, and we don't even have they don't run air conditioning or
Yep.
anything because it's just such beautiful. You just open the window and
Yep.
it's great. So I kind of picked this location based on my knowledge of the astrology that's going on, the solar flares that's going on. That's how I pick my spots. And I kind of just, I know not everyone can do that, but since I have that luxury, I take advantage of it and I pick spaces that I feel like, and I ask myself, I get in tune. I'm like, okay, should I go to Spain? And it'll usually pop up in the meditation, yes, a strong yes or a strong no. And I kind of just migrate that direction.
I love this nomadic lifestyle that you live. I know I would love to have the opportunity to do that. And that doesn't mean I'm jealous or envious, right? But I think it's so amazing. And I wish I could participate in that as well. But I am also super blessed to have my family and my home and, where I'm at. So I'm not at all, thinking that life could be grander if I could, but I do think it's so super cool that you do that. What are some of the things that have been the most exciting or the biggest takeaways from some of the places you've been? What do you think has been maybe an aha moment that you've had in your ability to do this?
How connected and how parallel we all are as a human race. I think when I first started traveling and I had 2+ bags, and I just, because I was just under the impression that America's, the best and we have everything and no one does it better than the United States. And, everything that we have, even our Q-tips, is way better than anything you could buy in any other country. And then you get to these countries and you get to these places and they're like, they have everything that we have, but they also don't have everything that we have, and they are living their best lives. And you don't really understand what because we get such a narrow view or narrow perspective of the world. We get a lot of whatever we do get of the world, it's about there's a war happening or this is happening or these people are starving. Like, we don't get the positive news. We don't get, we just get what's happening that's an issue, right? Because America goes in and we help. And then you get to these countries and you don't see any of the issues. All you see is love and you see happiness and you see these people. And I remember being in Croatia, and the guy says, why? He's like, I don't understand why you Americans are so big about retirement. Why can't you just go fishing now? And I was like, that's a great question. I don't know why they don't go fishing now. Like, he was like, you work, and then you retire and then you go fishing. But why don't you just do it now? Like, why do you have to wait? And the idea was, why do you have to wait to live? And he's like, we like to live now. And it was having these little conversations, these sidebar conversations with locals throughout my journey that really just opened my keyhole and made it bigger and made it bigger and made it bigger. And now it's gotten like 32 countries now and counting. It's like, it's gotten so perspective and so wide that it's like, yeah, that is I don't know. Like, let me figure that out. Why is that something that I wanted? Because I can't change what other people do. I can only change how I perceive the world. And it's about getting different perspectives. So I think for me, it's getting the perspectives and being able to expand my keyhole through these little random conversations that you have with people that you would think that would be the unhappy because they don't have like the house and cars that we have there. They have what they have, but they're happy with that. And they have, in a lot of ways, more than what we have, because they have love and they feel love on a much deeper scale. And I think a lot of us are too overworked and burnt out to even really feel. And I think that was like a big eye opener for me. That was like a big awakening for me. It's like, I don't think I've ever just sat here on the ocean and not had a checklist running through my head. Like, I didn't know what that felt like, because, I can't imagine not having a checklist. Because whether I write it down, there's always one that I had. And it got to the point where, I had 3 things, I had 2 things, and then there was nothing.
Yeah.
And it took these little conversations along across the way with random strangers to open that up and to eliminate that list.
Yeah, I still work through that. I mean, I realize, thankfully, I'm super blessed, and I've had the opportunity to be in other countries and notice and see how others live and recognize what we want to adopt or not adopt. So I've had the opportunity to do that at a much smaller scale. Sorry.
They
A much
agree.
smaller scale. That being said, though, I do think the one thing I would probably highlight or reiterate is I think the fact that we get so tired and burned out and stressed that we don't allow the love to shine through, not just our own love outwardly, but the love that others want to give us, which there again, I still think it's less of it because we're also burned out and tired and stressed, right? I mean, we put a lot on our plate. So I love that you live this life and you can see how happy and light and full of energy you are. What's your next place that you're headed?
I don't know. Each location comes to me in my downloads through my meditations. I'm starting a 15-day fast. This is day 2 of water only. So I do that once a year. And this year I usually do 7 day, and something told me to do 15 days. And so I'm going to just honor that and do it. And I may get a download that tells me to do less, but usually in this download, I've asked for in my meditation to let me know where my next country will be, because my visa here expires July 8th. So that gives me about another month here in Europe. But whatever that is, I'll get a ticket or a train and I'll move to that next location. It might be going back home or it might be going to another country. I honestly have no idea. And the weather will probably depict that a little bit. So I'm just going to keep an eye on that. So awesome. I have no idea. No idea.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to hear where that's going to be. So I'm super excited for you on that. I'm living vicariously through you. Well, we are running short on time. We're actually a little over time, but this has been such great conversation. And we could probably have another hour full of it. But I do want to be respectful of everyone's time. So I would love for you to share with us how we can best connect with you, Romita.
Yeah. So when the glitches are not happening, LinkedIn and Instagram are the best way to reach me. Glitter Explorer is my handle on everywhere, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So I can be reached there. Send me a message. My DMs are open and we can have a chat. My website as well is glitterforthesoul.com.
Awesome. And if you could leave maybe one parting thought, it's Friday. One last parting thought, what would that be to those that are listening?
Our life is really busy and we all have things going on. I would challenge folks in this next, especially if you get to a point where you, like you had last week where you had no power. So you were forced to be still. I have a feeling that stillness is going to be forced upon people in some way, shape, or form at some point in time this summer. Take advantage of that time and figure out what is one thing that you can do to nourish yourself this year a little bit more, whatever that may be. Maybe it's getting an extra hour of sleep. Maybe it's sitting for 30 minutes outside going, and doing like taking in nature or doing some grounding. Whatever it is that you feel like, just take a moment to ask your soul, what do I need to do to nourish you?
I love that and can appreciate that. And I will say I was complaining while I didn't have power. I complained quite a bit that I was crabby, and I was. I mean, it was hot. I was eaten up by mosquitoes. I mean, I probably had 50 mosquito bites on my body. The kids were nonstop bored because we didn't have internet access either. If I wanted to contact someone, my cell service was really spotty. Like if I could even connect, it would drop at half the time. I mean, it was just really terrible. And so while I was going through it, I really did complain about being crabby, and I was crabby. But on the other side of it, I actually wrote a post yesterday that was, I really appreciated that time reflecting back because it gave us time with our family without all the electronics and all the noise. We did have to get back to the basics, even though it was only 4 days and 5 nights. We did have to get back to the basics, right? And it allowed us to really have some quiet time with ourselves and with our family. And I do really appreciate that we had the opportunity to do that. So that would be my parting. That would be my tag to your parting thought, is really take advantage of those moments that you do have, because there may not seem like it at the moment, but when you get past that and navigate through it and are on the other side, you can reflect back and realize there was a reason why you had an opportunity to go through that. So it was an opportunity. I still was crabby, and I, that's just the way it was going to be.
Yeah.
But I got past it and I learned a lot from it. So,
Yep.
All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for having been here. I wish everyone a wonderful rest of your day. As I think everyone knows, I talk about sales, AI, and humanity. The sales aspect is on Tuesday mornings at 9 a.m. Houston, Texas time with my Sellovatorz live, Caff-AI Chats on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Central time, and then my humanity with Coffees with Denise on Fridays. So I'm always here on LinkedIn when it's not glitchy. So you can always find me there. Hope everyone has a wonderful Memorial Day weekend if you are in the US, and that you take this 3 days that we have and really spend some time with yourself and your family and just enjoy. Be in the moment, be present, and enjoy. And go seek out Romita. She is the business shaman, amazing person to talk to. She has even more that we could have unpacked and learned about her. I want to thank you for your time, Romita, and I thank everyone else for being here. I'm going to end the stream, play some music while we wait for the stream to end. And Romita, if you'll stay on for just a few moments. So here we go. I'm going to try a song.